There is a man asleep on a strip of concrete beside a road right now. Not a thought experiment. Right now. Lying on his side with his arm folded under his head because he does not own a pillow. He does not know where his next meal comes from. He does not know if the shelter he built out of tarp and wire will still be standing tomorrow. He does not know if the cough in his daughter's chest is the kind that passes or the kind that kills her. There is no clinic. There is no number to call. There is no version of tomorrow based on anything he can actually see that looks better than today. And every night before he sleeps, he prays. Now be honest about the first thing that moved through your head when I said that. Not the thing you would say out loud, the first thing. Because for a lot of you, it was some version of, that is sad. He is being comforted by something that is not real. If he knew more, if he had been educated properly, he would see through it. That thought is one of the most arrogant thoughts a human being can have, and I am going to take it apart. Because that man is not confused. He is not failing to reason. He is doing the only thing that keeps a conscious animal functional under conditions that would break almost everyone watching this. And the fact that you can look at his belief and call it a delusion is not evidence that you are smarter than him. It is evidence that you have never once needed what he needs. Everything referenced is in the description. Here is the claim. Atheism is a privilege. Not an intellectual achievement, not superior reasoning, not the natural endpoint of a mind that finally freed itself from superstition. A privilege. Something that becomes available to you only after certain conditions in your life have been quietly met, in the background, usually without your knowledge and almost always without your having earned them. And if those conditions are not met, if you live close enough to the edge that survival is a daily calculation instead of a background assumption, then atheism is not really available to you. Not because you are too stupid to reach it, because you cannot afford it. Something in some of you just tightened. Hold on to that, we are coming back for it. Start with something you can check against your own life. When you are in real danger, what happens to your thinking? Not stress, not a deadline, real, physical, survival-level danger. Your car losing traction, a phone call at 3 a.m. from a hospital. What happened in your head? It narrowed. Everything not immediately relevant to the next 60 seconds got switched off. You are not contemplating the nature of consciousness. You are not weighing the epistemological status of your beliefs. You are surviving the next moment, then the next one. That narrowing is not a malfunction. It is the oldest feature of the nervous system. Under threat, the brain reallocates. It shuts down the slow, expensive, abstract machinery and pours everything into the fast machinery that keeps you breathing. This is not controversial. It is boring undergraduate neuroscience. Cognitive resources are finite. Under scarcity, they get spent on what keeps the organism alive and everything else waits. Now extend it. Not 60 seconds, 30 years. What happens to a mind that lives in that state permanently? Not because of one crisis, but because the crisis is simply what life is. What happens to the capacity for abstract philosophical questioning inside a brain that has been running survival arithmetic without pause since childhood? It does not develop. Not because the person is stupid, because the machinery is occupied. The luxury of asking whether existence has meaning requires first that your existence is not in question. This is not speculation. Researchers studying cognitive bandwidth found that when people are placed under severe financial scarcity, their measurable cognitive performance drops. Not their intelligence permanently, their available capacity. The mind is so consumed by the arithmetic of survival, which bill to delay, which meal to skip, that there is less left for anything else. The effect is not marginal. In some studies, the impairment is comparable to losing an entire night of sleep, sometimes worse. Sit with that. Poverty is not a condition of the bank account. It is a condition of the mind. It eats the exact faculties that abstract inquiry runs on. So the person not asking whether God exists is not failing to ask. They are spending that processing power on a problem that is louder, closer, and considerably more fatal. You would do the same. You have simply never been there. Let me make this concrete, because statistics let you keep your distance, and I do not want you to have any. Give him a name. Call him Ravi. Ravi is 34, and he's the man on the concrete, and I'm going to walk you through one ordinary week of his life. Not a catastrophic week, an average one. Monday, he wakes at 4, because the road gets loud at 5 and there is no sleeping through it. He has not eaten since yesterday afternoon. He walks to a junction where contractors sometimes pick up day labor. Sometimes. He stands there for 6 hours. Today nobody comes. That is not unusual. That is roughly 2 days in 5. He walks back with nothing. Tuesday, he gets work, carrying brick, 11 hours. The pay is enough for food, and he eats, and he gives most of it to his daughter, who is 7 and who has had a cough for 3 weeks. He knows what the cough might be. Everyone here knows what the cough might be. There is a government clinic 4 hours away, and the queue starts before dawn, and if he spends a day in that queue, he does not work, and if he does not work, she does not eat. So the calculation he is running every single day is this: her lungs or her stomach. Choose. Wednesday, he is short. He borrows. The person he borrows from charges interest that is functionally unpayable, and he knows it is unpayable when he takes it, and he takes it anyway because the alternative is that she does not eat on Wednesday. He has now added a permanent, compounding, mathematically hopeless debt to a life that was already at capacity. This is not stupidity. This is what every person does at the bottom, because at the bottom, the long term does not exist. There is no long term. There is only Wednesday. Thursday, somebody steals his tarp. Friday, she is worse. Now, I want you to tell me precisely at what point in that week Ravi is supposed to sit down and evaluate the ontological status of God. Which hour? Show me the hour. Because I have just described a mind that is running without interruption at absolute maximum load on a problem set that has no solution for a stake that is his child's life. And you want him to allocate cognitive resources to metaphysics? You want him to hold a belief up to the light, examine the evidence dispassionately, notice the contradictions, and arrive at a conclusion that will give him nothing, cost him the only thing carrying him, and change not one single fact about Friday? He is not intellectually incapable of doing that. He is correctly refusing to do it, because there is no version of that reasoning that helps him. There is no version where he arrives at the truth and the truth feeds her. The only thing the truth does in his position is remove the last structure holding him upright. And here is the part that should genuinely land. If you had been born into his week, you would not be watching this video. You would not have the concept of an existential question. Not because your brain would be different, it would be the same brain. It would just be busy. Every philosophical thought you have ever had was subsidized. Somebody fed you first. Here's the ladder. Once you see it, you cannot stop seeing it. At the bottom is survival. Food, water, shelter, a body not currently failing. If this is where you live, the question of whether the universe has intrinsic meaning does not occur to you. Not because you are shallow, because survival has no use for it. One rung up is security, not wealth, security. The reasonable expectation that tomorrow resembles today, that the roof holds, that the work is still there next week, that the people you love do not vanish. And here, for the first time, bandwidth gets released, and the mind, which is a restless and permanently unsatisfied organ, does what it always does with spare capacity. It starts asking questions. Why am I here? What is this for? Is any of it real? Another rung up with more insulation between you and the edge, the questions get more abstract and more corrosive, until eventually you can look at the entire architecture of religious belief, examine it, find its contradictions, trace its origins, compare it against 4,000 other religions making identical claims, and conclude that none of it is literally true. And here is the part everyone misses. You can survive that conclusion. You can hold it and keep functioning, because something else is holding you up. The house, the savings, the healthcare, the stable relationships, the quiet confidence that if something goes badly wrong, there is a system underneath you that catches you before you hit the ground. Atheism does not require you to be rich. It requires you to be held. And almost every atheist alive is being held by a level of stability that is historically freakish, globally rare, and that they did not build. Now the data. This is not a position I constructed out of intuition. It is one of the most consistent findings in the sociology of religion, and it holds up brutally. Take a map of religiosity, not who ticks a box on a census form, who actually reports that religion matters in their daily life, who prays, who organizes their existence around it. Now put that next to a map of existential security, healthcare, food stability, physical safety, life expectancy, the odds your child lives to 5. The two maps are photographic negatives of each other. The places with the highest security, Scandinavia, parts of Western Europe, Japan, are the least religious societies that have ever existed. Not somewhat less, unprecedentedly less. And the places with the lowest security, where life is short and violent and hungry, are the most religious places on Earth. And the correlation does not break when you push on it. It holds across cultures, across continents, across unrelated religious traditions. It even holds inside individual countries. Compare the most precarious communities in any nation with the most comfortable ones, and the pattern reappears at smaller scale. It is fractal. It shows up at every magnification. Pippa Norris and Ronald Inglehart laid this out, and their conclusion was uncompromising. The strongest single predictor of how religious a population is not how educated it is how secure it is. Remove the security, and religion returns. Provide it, and religion recedes. Not because people got smarter, because they stopped needing it. Read that again. They stopped needing it, which means the belief was never primarily a claim about evidence. It was doing a job. It was load-bearing. And when the job ended, the belief quietly dissolved. Not refuted, retired. And if you want the single most damning piece of evidence for all of this, you do not have to leave the developed world. You just have to explain America. America is supposed to be the case that breaks the theory. Enormously wealthy, scientifically dominant, highly educated, and dramatically more religious than any other rich nation. Not marginally, not close. For years, this was held up as the counterexample. If wealth produces atheism, why is the richest country also one of the most religious? Then people looked inside the country instead of at the average. America is rich in aggregate and terrified in distribution. One of the weakest safety nets in the developed world. Medical bankruptcy as a routine event that happens to ordinary employed people. Healthcare tied to employment, so losing your job can mean losing access to medicine in the same week. Wage stagnation, enormous inequality, a genuine non-hypothetical possibility of falling out of the middle class and never getting back in. In other words, an enormous number of Americans live with exactly the security the theory predicts will produce religion. And it does. America does not disprove the security hypothesis. It is the loudest confirmation of it. A rich country full of frightened people praying. Now run the experiment in the other direction. Because the theory does not just predict that insecurity produces religion, it predicts that if you engineer security, religion should die. Not through argument, through irrelevance. And there is a place where that experiment was actually run, not in a lab, on a population, over 80 years. Scandinavia. These are the least religious societies in recorded human history, not the least religious in Europe, in history. Enormous numbers of people who do not believe, do not pray, do not think about it, and who find the entire question mildly boring, not hostile, bored, which is a far more complete death for a religion than opposition ever was. Nothing survives being boring. And nobody argued them out of it. There was no great debate, no decisive refutation, no devastating book that changed everyone's mind. What happened was much simpler and much more brutal. They built a system that catches you. If you get sick, there is treatment and it does not bankrupt you. If you lose your job, there is money and you do not lose your home. If you are old, you are not abandoned. If you have a child, the child will almost certainly live and be educated and not starve, and the state will help you carry them. If your life falls apart, something underneath you takes the weight. They built, deliberately, out of tax revenue and policy, the exact thing that God had been doing, something that is above you, something that is looking out for you, something that will not let you fall past a certain point, something you can rely on when your own strength runs out. They built the load-bearing structure out of concrete instead of scripture. And religion did not get defeated there, it got made redundant. It was replaced by a functioning welfare state, which delivers the same core psychological product, the confidence that you will be caught, with the significant advantage of actually existing. Now sit with the implication because it is not comfortable for either side of this argument.
For the believer, it means your faith may be doing something more mundane than you think. It means that a sufficiently good hospital system does to religion what 400 years of philosophy could not. But for the atheist, it's worse, because it means your unbelief is not the product of your reasoning, it is the product of your infrastructure. You are not an atheist because you thought harder.
You are an atheist because someone built you a floor, and floors can be removed. That is not hypothetical. Watch what happens to any secure population when the security goes. Watch the religiosity in a region after a war, after an economic collapse, after a pandemic. It does not stay flat. It never stays flat. Your unbelief is not a conclusion. It is a weather condition, and you are standing indoors. So what is the job? What is religion actually doing for the person who cannot afford to go without it? It is manufacturing hope. And you have to understand what hope actually is, because our culture has turned the word into something soft and slightly embarrassing. Hope is not optimism. Hope is not positivity. Hope is not a mood. Hope is load-bearing, and when it collapses, the person collapses with it. That is not poetry. It is documented. Viktor Frankl survived the camps and spent the rest of his life trying to understand a pattern that had horrified him inside them. It was not the physically strongest who survived, not the youngest, not the ones who arrived in the best condition. The people who died first, reliably, predictably, in a way you could almost forecast, were the ones who lost the future, who stopped believing there was anything on the other side of this. He watched men who had endured for months simply stop one morning, refuse to get up, lie there, dead within days. Nothing had changed physically. Something had gone in the structure holding them up, and the body followed it down. And this is not one man's impression from an extreme situation. There is a large body of research on what happens to an organism that concludes its actions cannot change its outcomes. Learned helplessness. And the findings are consistent and grim. Once a creature is convinced nothing it does matters, it stops doing anything. It will not act even when escape becomes possible. It stays where it is and endures what is done to it and deteriorates. That is what the loss of hope does. Not sadness, shutdown. So the conclusion is not sentimental, it is mechanical. The human animal does not run on food and water. It runs in the sense that the suffering is going somewhere. Take that away, and the machine stops. Now look at the man on the concrete again. No buffer, no net, no reasonable expectation of improvement based on anything he can see. Every rational assessment of his situation says tomorrow is today, and today is barely survivable. So what gets him up in the morning? What is the load-bearing structure? Because if you take God away from him and hand him nothing, you have not given him the truth. You have given him a reason to stop. And on some level below language, he knows it. This is why the oldest cliché about human behavior under extremity turns out to be pointing at something real. There are no atheists in foxholes. Taken literally, it is false, and I will deal with that. But as a description of a tendency, it is accurate and well documented. Push a human being close enough to death, and something in them reaches. It happens on operating tables, in wreckage, in the 16th hour of a labor. It happens to lifelong skeptics who are appalled themselves afterwards. And it is not a failure of intellect. It is the organism doing what organisms do when the ground disappears. And you can watch it happen to entire civilizations. When the plague came through medieval Europe and killed a third of the continent, the response was not a wave of enlightened skepticism about a god who would permit it. It was an explosion of religiosity, processions, flagellants, desperate, enormous outpourings of faith. The catastrophe did not produce doubt, it produced belief. Because belief is what a terrified population produces. Doubt is what a comfortable population produces, slowly, over generations, on a full stomach. There is an entire branch of experimental psychology built on this. Terror management theory starts from Ernest Becker's argument that awareness of death is so overwhelming to a self-conscious animal that human culture is essentially a vast defense system built to manage it. And the researchers who took it into the lab did something clever. They took ordinary people and quietly reminded some of them that they were going to die. Nothing dramatic. A questionnaire,
a word association, a conversation held near a funeral home. Then they measured what those people did next. Across hundreds of studies, the result is the same. Remind a human being of their own mortality, and they cling harder to their beliefs, harder to their group, harder to their worldview, whatever it happens to be, more hostile to outsiders, more defensive, more certain. The implication is enormous. The intensity with which a person holds their worldview is not, at bottom, an epistemological event. It is a thermal one. The colder it gets, the tighter you pull the blanket. And the man on the concrete is very, very cold. Now I'm going to argue against myself, properly, not a token objection I knock down in a sentence.
Just because a belief is useful does not make it true. That is correct, entirely correct, and it has to be conceded without hedging. The fact that religion functions as a psychological support system tells you nothing about whether any God exists. Those are separate questions, and running them together is a genuine error. The man on the concrete may be drawing real strength from something that is not there. That is possible, and nothing I have said refutes it. So let me be exact about what I am claiming, because the precision is the whole thing. I am not claiming religion is true because it is useful. I am claiming that the capacity to be indifferent to whether a belief is useful, the ability to hold it at a cold analytical distance and judge it on evidence alone, is itself a capacity that requires conditions. You have to be safe enough that the answer does not determine whether you can keep functioning. The philosopher who calmly concludes there is no God, then goes home to a warm house, sleeps well, gets up, and goes to a job that pays him, is doing something that looks like pure reasoning. He can reason purely because nothing in his life is resting on the outcome. That is not a caveat. That is the entire thing. Truth-seeking that costs you nothing, and truth-seeking that would cost you the ability to survive the week are not the same activity. They feel identical from the inside. They are not identical. And the person doing the cheap version almost never notices it was cheap. Second objection, and it is the strongest one, and I would be lying if I skipped it. There are atheists who are not privileged. There always have been. People who lost everything, who lived in genuine precarity, who suffered on a scale most of us cannot imagine, and who do not believe. And some of them do not believe precisely because of what they suffered. They looked at what happened to their child or their village and concluded that no benevolent power could permit it and remain benevolent. That is not a privileged conclusion. That is a conclusion reached at the bottom in the dark by someone who paid full price for it. Their existence complicates my argument, and it should. So the claim is not that no unprivileged person is ever atheist. That is false, and you would be right to call me on it. The claim is statistical. It is about what happens at scale. When you strip security from 100 million people, religiosity rises. When you give it to them, religiosity falls. Individual exceptions do not break that. Individual exceptions are how statistics work. But look carefully at what the person who became an atheist through suffering actually did. They took the collapse of hope and turned it into a position. They made a meaning out of the absence of meaning. They built a load-bearing structure anyway, just out of different material. Defiance instead of faith, fury instead of trust, lucidity instead of comfort. Something is still holding them up. Nobody stands with nothing underneath them. Nobody. Ever. Hold that. It's about to take the floor out from under you. Because here's where this stops being about other people. Up to now, I have been talking about the man on the road and population statistics and the camps, and it's very easy to file all of that under things that are true about other people and carry on. But if the argument is right, something follows that is intolerable for anyone who thinks they are too rational for religion. You did not reason your way out of God. You were released from the need for God by material conditions you did not create and did not earn. The healthcare that makes your child's fever an inconvenience rather than a death sentence. The food supply that makes hunger a feeling you get before lunch instead of a condition you live inside. The safety that lets you walk outside without calculating odds. The centuries of accumulated wealth and violence and institution building that produced the society you were dropped into without asking and without deserving. That is what made your skepticism affordable. Not your intelligence, not your courage, not your commitment to evidence. Those things are real. They are also downstream.
They grew in soil someone else prepared, in a climate you did not arrange. And if you had been born on that strip of concrete, with that cough in your daughter's chest, and no clinic within 100 miles, the overwhelming statistical probability is that you would be praying too. Not because you would be a lesser version of yourself, because you would be a human being under the exact conditions that reliably produce prayer in every culture, on every continent, for as long as there have been human beings. The mind under threat reaches for something above it. That is what the mind does. You have simply never been enough under threat to feel your own hand start to move. Which is why a certain style of aggressive atheism is not just cruel, it's philosophically confused. You've seen it. Someone extremely comfortable, extremely safe, extremely well-fed, mocking the beliefs of people who are none of those things, demanding the scientific evidence, treating the whole structure as a mass delusion only the stupid could still be standing inside. What that person is actually doing, without knowing it, is bragging about their circumstances while believing they are demonstrating their intellect. They are saying, "Look how little I need." What they mean is, "Look how much I have." If you have never had to reach for something above you, that is not a virtue, that is a fact about your biography. And converting a fact about your biography into a claim about your character is the oldest error human beings make. Every comfortable class in history has made it. The nobles believed they were noble. They were just fed. Now, the objection that the intelligent viewer is currently forming, and I know you are forming it because it is the correct next move and you are not stupid, you are thinking, fine, but some people genuinely do reason their way out. There are people who examined the evidence honestly, followed it, and arrived at unbelief on the merits. That is real. That happens. Are you saying intelligence has nothing to do with it? No, I am saying something worse. I am saying intelligence does not free you from the need. It just builds you a better-looking shelter. Because look at what actually happens to a highly intelligent person under real, sustained existential threat. They do not become more rational, they become more elaborate. The mind that is capable of constructing a sophisticated critique of religion is exactly the mind that is capable of constructing a sophisticated substitute for it. And it will, reliably, automatically. And it will be far harder to see, because it will be built out of respectable material. The intelligent person does not pray to God. They build a philosophy, a politics, a theory of history in which their side is on the right side of it. A conviction that they are one of the few who can see clearly while the masses sleep. A belief that if they are rigorous enough, disciplined enough, correct enough, then the universe will more or less hold up its end. That is a religion. It has a cosmology, a priesthood, a doctrine of the elect, and a promise of vindication. It simply has no God in it, which its adherents mistake for having no faith in it. And you can watch it break under load exactly like any other faith. Watch what happens to the fiercely rational man when his child dies, not the arguments he makes afterwards, the first 30 seconds. Watch where he goes. Watch what he says out loud in the room before the intellect catches up and takes the wheel. Something reaches. It always reaches. It reaches in the atheist too. He just gets to be embarrassed about it afterwards and file it under shock and go back to believing he is made of a different substance than the man on the concrete. He is not made of a different substance. He is made of the same substance, wrapped in more layers, and the layers were purchased for him by a society that he did not build, and a century that he did not choose, and a birth certificate that could just as easily have been issued somewhere else. Intelligence is not an exit from the human condition. It is an interior decorator. It cannot get you out of the room. It can only make the room look like the sort of room a person would choose. But I am not letting religion off the hook, because that would be its own dishonesty. The fact that religion provides hope does not make the hope harmless. Marx understood this. His line about religion being the opium of the people is always quoted as a sneer, and the passage it comes from is closer to compassion. He called religion the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world. He was not saying believers are idiots. He was saying the world is genuinely unbearable for enormous numbers of people, and religion is what makes it bearable. Then he made the harder point. If your suffering will be compensated in the next life, the pressure to fix it in this one drops. If the injustice will be corrected by a cosmic judge, the urgency of correcting it yourself drops. The same belief keeping the man on the concrete alive may be one of the things keeping him on the concrete. It converts a political condition into a spiritual test. It takes something done to him by systems and people and history and reframes it as meaningful, observed, and eventually balanced. And a man who believes his suffering will eventually be balanced is a much less likely man to burn the building down. That is not a small point. It is one of the most consequential facts in political history, and every ruling class that ever existed has understood it, and many of them used it deliberately, cynically, and with full knowledge of what they were doing. So we are left with something horrible.
The belief keeping the person alive may be part of what keeps him where he is. You cannot remove it, because removing it kills him. You cannot endorse it, because endorsing it makes you part of the machinery. That does not resolve. Anyone who resolves it for you cleanly is selling something. Now, the last step. This is the one that will make some of you genuinely angry. If religion is a load-bearing structure built under insecurity, then its disappearance in secure societies should have left a hole. It did. So look at what moved in. Because human beings do not go without a load-bearing structure, not once in the entire history of the species. Political ideology, held with a fervor and a moral absolutism and a hunger to demonize outsiders that is functionally indistinguishable from religious zeal. Identity, defended like a sacred object. Career, treated as the source of ultimate meaning and pursued with a devotion any medieval monk would recognize instantly. Wellness culture, with its purity rules and its rituals and its dietary law and its promise of salvation through correct practice. Consumption, endlessly promising a transformation that never arrives and always requires one more purchase. Conspiracy, which offers exactly what religion offered, a hidden order behind the visible chaos, and a story in which you are one of the few who can see it. None of these call themselves religions. Every one of them does the job religion was doing. The certainty, the community of the correct, the enemy who is not merely wrong, but evil. The promise that the suffering is meaningful and the righteous will be vindicated. And most of them do the job worse than the thing they replaced. Because the old religions, whatever their crimes, and their crimes were enormous, had been hammered into some shape by 2,000 years of collision with human failure. They had confession, forgiveness, a doctrine of universal fallenness that made it genuinely hard to believe you were entirely good and your enemy entirely evil. The new structures have none of that. All of the certainty, none of the humility. The crusade without the confession. So the secular person who believes they outgrew religion has usually just changed which altar they kneel at. And they have not noticed, because the new altar does not look like an altar. It looks like being right. Which brings us back to the man on the concrete, and to that first thought you had, the one I asked you to be honest about. The flicker of pity, with something underneath it, a quiet, well-mannered sense of superiority. That is what this was built to take apart. Because he and you are doing the same thing. You are both holding yourselves up with something you cannot prove. He is holding on to God. You are holding on to whatever you are holding on to. Progress, your work, your children, the belief that things are basically getting better. The belief that you are a rational person and rational people end up broadly okay. Some story about who you are and where this is going that you have never once submitted to the standard of evidence you demand of him. Try removing it. Try living 1 week with no load-bearing structure at all. No hope of any kind. No belief that anything you do matters. No expectation that tomorrow contains anything worth waking for. You will not last the week. Nobody does. The difference between you and him is not that you are free of the need. It is that your need is being met so quietly, by conditions so comfortable and so constant that you have never had to hear it speak. So you mistook silence for absence. You think you have no God, because yours has never had to raise its voice. What do you do with this? Honestly, not much. There is no action item, and I am not going to invent one. But there is a shift available, and it costs you nothing except pride. Next time you meet someone whose belief looks obviously irrational to you, ask a different question than the one you have been asking. Not, is this true, but what is this holding up?
What would collapse if it were removed? And then ask it about yourself. Because if you look honestly at what you believe and have never examined, the assumptions about your future and your worth and your basic okayness that you carry around every day without a shred of evidence, you will find something unpleasant. You are not the coldly rational creature you took yourself for. You are a frightened animal with better insulation. So is everyone else. The insulation varies enormously. The animal does not vary at all. And once you see that, the argument about God stops looking like a fight between the intelligent and the stupid. It starts looking like what it always was, a species with a hole in it, filling the hole with whatever is lying around, then arguing about whose filler is the real one. Meanwhile, the man on the concrete says his prayer, and sleeps, and wakes up, and goes again, which is more than almost anyone mocking him could manage in his position, considerably more.